Okay, good afternoon. We are back from our recess, and we'll continue our conversation in reference to the budget. Before we get to that, checking with Commissioner Boucher, I take it we've gotten um, your bugs worked out down there. Are we good?
So far, so good, but who knows what will happen next.
Okay, very good. Let's hope for the best. Before we get to our budget discussion, did just get off the phone with the governor and his cabinet, and I will be providing an update from the state of Maryland. I think this is important as we move forward here to continue this dialogue. The governor advised that we have seen the three most deadliest days in a row in Maryland, but our hospitalization rate is slowing. But it is only slowing because of the fact that everyone is social distancing and doing the things that they need to do. They are beginning to work on a recovery plan, but it's important to know that it is in the thinking stages right now. That is all. And the governor has expressed that he is as anxious as anyone to get us back up and running. But there are four important items that need to occur in order to do that. Number one is to make sure that we have the surge capacity available, and we're working on that. Number two is to dramatically increase our testing capabilities. Maryland is looking for at least 10,000 tests a day, and that's something of the likes of no other state. But I applaud the governor for doing that, and he's going to continue to do that until we're at that stage. Very, very aggressive. Number three is making sure we have contact tracing that is able to be done. That's going to include hiring quite a few folks to be able to do that. And then number four is to continue to ensure that we have the adequate supply of PPE that's needed. So those four important items will go into the beginning of the discussion of what a recovery plan would look like. And the governor made a very important point. There are some counties that are experiencing this worse than others. And I hear this all the time from people. Well, we're not bad here. It's worse down in Prince George's, or it's worse in Montgomery. Why do we have to do what everyone else does? Here's his point. If the Eastern Shore doesn't have cases and they reopen, then everybody's going to go to the Eastern Shore. And then guess what happens? If Carroll County opens and everybody else around us is not, then everybody's going to come to Carroll County to do their shopping or what have you. So the point of that is we're all in this together. The state of Maryland has got to work all of the jurisdictions together in order to get us where we need to be. Couple statistics. We now have 10,784 cases in the state of Maryland. That's up from yesterday, 752. We have 392 deaths, which is up 43. Under the age of 50, 50% of the cases. So for those folks that think, well, it's only the elderly and what have you, again, not correct information. 50% are under the age of 50. There are 1,219 citizens in the state of Maryland hospitalized. On a good note, there are 736 that have fully recovered. So that's the latest update from our governor and his staff. And again, we applaud his efforts and all that he's doing. Maryland is out in front of this thing unlike anyone else. So with that being said, we're getting back to the budget discussion that we started off this morning. And Ted, anything that you'd like to focus on as we begin this afternoon's activity?
Yeah, just thinking back to this morning, I can understand if it seems to the commissioners as if I'm being uncooperative or getting in the way of what you're trying to do. And Maybe because in some ways I am. It's not my intent to be uncooperative, though. Yeah, I understand the pressures that are on you to find ways to get some things done. And I'm just concerned that in our current situation, that we can't do that without adding to our risk. But that's a choice that can be made. So I think you've come to general agreement that that flat budget out there is more or less our starting point, with maybe a few things you want to talk about. What I'm going to suggest to you now is, if there are ongoing costs that you want to add, you just make the decision to add them. But in doing it, we just need to acknowledge that we have concerns about fiscal year 21. There's much we don't know. The more we add to 21, the greater the chance that it doesn't work out. Doesn't mean it won't. I mean, things might be fine in 21, but we increase the odds that it won't work out. And we need to acknowledge that any ongoing costs we take right now will make our longer term picture worse than it is today. We know we have a problem that we're going to need to work on. And I'm okay with the idea of, well, let's say figuring that out for another time. But I would encourage you, whatever the implications of the choices we make today are, let's keep them visible on our op plan. Let's acknowledge the negatives that are out there, leave them visible, and just say we're tackling that another time.
Thank you for your ever sunny disposition, Ted. I appreciate it. I have a couple questions of things that I went through during the lunch break between my workout and lunch and all. Community investment plan for fiscal year community investment plan, land acquisition. We have 307,000 for 21, 340,000. Is that to add additional parks, or add, what is that money for? Because that is ongoing money.
You were in the Rec and Park section of the CIP?
Yes, I believe I am.
Yeah, well, parks and park-related development. But remember, that is overwhelmingly program open space money, state shared tax revenue. It's
Well, here
we're committed to those purposes.
Well, actually, because I looked down on the bottom part and where it says sources of funding, it says transfer from general fund. Almost the exact amounts that you're looking for land acquisition.
Okay, I think I have my CIP piled under my monitor here. Okay, can we get back to you with that on that in a couple minutes?
All right.
Make sure I understand what you're saying.
Hey,
Right.
Dennis, are you talking about page 49 in the yellow book?
I'm on page 110 of the CIP plan recommended.
Commissioner Frazier, you need to look at page 120.
My book doesn't go up that high. All right, I'm looking at 120.
And if you look down at the sources of funds,
I see
it's
that. All right.
program open space.
All right, I did not see that page before. I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
How about, I'm looking at page 151 of the same book, where we're going to be buying, it says construction for safety emergency communication radios. There's 824,000, and then but it's ongoing, it seems to be ongoing to FY26 with increased money. I guess we're buying radios. Is that, do we need to do that right now? Can we buy half the radios? We push it off a couple years?
That's ongoing forever.
Right.
That's just continually replacing our 800 megahertz radios. I mean, in theory, you could delay doing it, but it doesn't fundamentally change anything, because it's not like we can not spend the money. You could spend it later, but all it would gain you, even if you do it, is again, one-time money. There's no
So
way,
that's- I got that.
there's really no way to save money. Other than to say we're not going to replace the radios, but I don't think anybody would argue that's viable.
My guess is the radios have reached the end of their useful life, or is that, are we, I know we want to replace them before the problems happen, but this is an ongoing revenue source is what I'm looking at.
Well, there's two things going on. We do have an end-of-life problem where we have radios that are no longer being supported, that we're trying to move on to newer radios. But even that aside, we do have to assume that they're going to be replaced on a certain schedule. That doesn't mean every radio needs to be replaced on that schedule, but there's no way to significantly change this funding plan without just arbitrarily saying we're just not replacing radios. You know, the problem is there's a lot of radios and they're expensive.
Right.
The other problem there is too, those radios become to the point where they aren't supported by software or the ability to get repair parts for them. And that's just the nature of the beast of that area. So then essentially what you have is a wing and a prayer, boots on the ground front line that quite possibly could have an old radio that doesn't have the right software in it, which is quite frankly unacceptable.
Right, I wouldn't want that to happen. I'm just looking through the thing, trying to find ways to get some additional money. My next page was the Public Safety Training Center. It looks like we're putting $1 million in FY21, FY22. How much of that is actually for parking lots? Because I look at the burn building and other things that will be happening. We do need to do that. But how much of that is dedicated to parking lot? We could probably push that.
I believe that's grant money that we've received that is specifically for the purpose of that. And I don't know that we have any leverage with that grant money.
Yes, the latest funding pieces are coming to us from the state. The county money's been in for some years now. And I'm glad you're asking these questions because this actually points up one of the difficult things. It's easy to look at the budget and say, well, what about this money? What about this money? But there's often a lot more behind the story than just appears from looking at the numbers. That doesn't mean that there aren't places though where you could make a choice. Just so far, you haven't hit out any. And that's another problem we're up against. And we've talked about this before. When you're looking at the Capitol, there's just not that much in the Capitol. This is where I've said, when we hit the last recession, we went and cleaned out a lot of stuff in the Capitol, both bits and pieces of money that were sitting around, and we stopped some projects. We just don't have the same kind of flexibility this time because we've never built the capital budget back up like it was back in 2008.
So what about the money that we put aside for a turf field up in North Carroll? It doesn't look like the high school is going to turn into a viable option to use any bond money, state bond money, so therefore we wouldn't be matching it. We could use the money for other places, but there's no dedicated location at this point. So again, yes, it's one time, but it's still, I think, 500,000 that we put aside.
Right. And that's totally in your hands.
Right. So I think at this point, and I appreciate our state delegation's efforts in helping us find funds for a turf field. However, we are not in a position to match those funds in a specific location at this time. So it's, that may be money that we should take a look at targeting and using elsewhere.
I mean, I would agree, Ed, there's no use for that money right now, and there's not. And I'm all for, I guess, taking it out and putting it back in general fund, but the problem is, again, it is just one-time money, although it is money we can certainly use.
Just checking to make sure folks are checking their microphones, getting a lot of feedback on an open mic.
Commissioner Weaver, you're closest to that problem set in that community. What are your thoughts about pulling that money?
Well, I hate to pull it at the present time. I think but I'm not sure we're ever going to use it at that site the way things are going. If we have a buyer for the property, that money will become, I guess, available to us. I don't know what to say on it right at the present time. We're right in the middle of this, hoping to put it together. If a group would buy it, they would put their own money into a turf field. That money wouldn't be used for that. We don't have a site anywhere else for it, so I don't know what to think on that one. Once it's like everything, once it's gone, it's gone. It won't come back, I'm sure, in the next few years somewhere. So I don't know. Commissioner Lance, what do you think on that one?
Well, I kind of agree with you, Dick. I mean, if it appears as if we're getting ever so slowly closer to a private enterprise at that former school. And if that's the case, we couldn't use the money anyway. We can't transfer it to a private enterprise. And there is nowhere else to use it right now. And I'm not even sure that we'd want to, with the fact that we're so strapped here. Probably wouldn't be the best thing for us to be going out putting turf fields in the middle of a huge fiscal challenge here. So I tend to agree with you, Dick. It appears to me as if we've got one or two interested parties privately over there. So we can't give the money to them.
So last year, I pushed to keep that money in place with the intent of building that turf field up in North Carroll for all the right reasons. But in saying that for all the right reasons, my recommendation, and I take it as a motion to pull that money out of that investment and put it back into the general fund.
Just a procedural question on that, I guess, or maybe a process question. What happens with the money that our state legislators set aside as matching?
Well,
Anybody?
my understanding after talking with Senator Reedy about that, and this was a little dated, probably a month or two ago, he said that there is the flexibility where they would have the, I guess, ability to ask that money go somewhere else within the county for that purpose for a turf field. I think it's isn't it a 2-year time frame from when it's when it's decided that the money should be given to the time the money is actually used, the match would still have to be there, from the county or a nonprofit, I believe, but typically from the county. So although it's earmarked for North Carroll or for up in Hampstead, it could be moved, my understanding, to another part of the county. But if we don't come up with a solution, it's going to be gone. It'll just go right back into the state, which is not a good thing when we're asking for something and they agree and then we're giving it back. So.
Ed, in that conversation, I guess there was no possibility of it being used for something other than it had to specifically be for a turf field.
That's my understanding. It's a world I'm not living in, but I'm aware of it well enough where it's earmarked for a turf field specifically for a location. The flexibility would have been on a different location, but for the same purpose of a turf field. That's, again, my basic understanding of what's going on.
And we have to have matching funds for that, correct?
Correct.
And why is it only 470,000? I thought it was 500.
American Parks has spent some, go ahead.
No, good, Deb.
I believe Rec and Park spent some money on design. I'll check into it though.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know it included that. I didn't know there was I didn't know that indeed was part of the grant.
No, that would have been
$30,000 on design.
that was coming out of our money. The state money is either $200,000 or $250,000. If this was still a viable project, we had a number of problems anyway. We arbitrarily assigned $1 million to it. That wasn't tied to any actual estimate of the project. We asked the state for $500,000 and got 200 or 250. So even if $1 million was the right number, we didn't have that much. You would have had to come up with more money anyway. But now, if the project's not moving ahead, none of that matters anymore.
Okay, so you made a motion, didn't you, Ed?
Correct. To take that money and put it into the general fund.
Okay. The only question I have again is and I heard your answer, Ed, but is there a way that we could get some direction on what that means, specific direction on what that means in reference to that state funding? I thought it was 500,000. I know it was only 250, but could we get a direction on that?
It's my understanding that it goes away. I mean, we can reach out to Delegate Shoemaker, who put the request in. He is the one who sponsored that bond bill, or Senator Reedy, and get their 2 cents on what the expectation would be. But the bottom line is, if we're looking at pulling money, I'd rather pull money from a turf field than from RSS beds or from the nonprofits. or from a lot of the other very challenging areas that we're looking at. In line with our priorities that we lined up, that turf field was not up there. Now, I don't want to be so parochial about this. Like Ted said, these are very just tough decisions to be made. And I know there's a lot of interest in building a strong community up in Hampstead, and I'm all 100% for it. I think Jack is working hard for a buyer up there. I think things may be in motion in that good direction. None of it, though, ties to the ability to use this money to build a turf field up there. And that was the intent. So.
So I hate to be the one to second this because I was the one that put it out there in the first place that we should put money aside for it. However, I do think it's the right thing to do at this time. So second.
Okay, and again, I want to reiterate that these motions that we are taking throughout this process are placeholders only. So, you know, if indeed this would go, it would be my intent. I mean, I'm leaning towards doing this because we can't give this money to a private enterprise. So it would just be sitting there. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we have one or two strong possibilities there privately?
Yes, we do. Or we could simply move this to Leicester Park, which is right down the road from there. You know, and use all the monies for it. So, you know, we have a couple possibilities.
I have to say, when we had talked about this earlier with this money for the turf field, I thought we had an agreement that if it wasn't going to be used for the old North Carroll High School, that we would see about putting it where Carroll Community College is and they could use it there. So I don't want to entertain any idea about moving it to a different park or somewhere else because we had all talked about this. The number one place to put it was the reason we put the money aside was put it in the stadium, the old stadium at Old North Carroll High School. We also said that if it can't be used up in that area, Carroll Community College was the next place where it wouldn't go because they could use that. They have that bowl down here that starts the sports. Community would use it as well. I mean, if you want to keep it in and it's not going to be used up there, that's the place where it should be going. We have already talked about that.
You know, moving this to the community college would not be a in-kind swap. You know, we don't fully use the fields at the community college. We've actually lost some playing time on the fields. And if they continue to move ahead with their athletic programs, that's going to be even more true. You would want to talk with Jeff Vegas about this more, but I don't think there's any expectation that we would get comparable use. And to the extent we talk about moving this somewhere else, keep in mind, you know, these fields have approximately a 10-year life. If it's $1 million to put it in, you have to plan on about $500,000 10 years from now to renew the field. So just another, be careful what we're committing ourselves to.
And the other problem here is too, if we've already spent $30,000 on a engineering study or whatever, what in the world is it going to be putting it somewhere else? Because I think the field at the old school was almost turf ready. So we'd have to come up with a good deal of extra money even to prepare a place and look at it because they wouldn't have any drainage. I think that the old school had drainage and everything ready for it, that it would be easy to put in there.
Yep, you raised some important.
That's correct.
And that's why I say, you know, that $1 million was an arbitrary number. It wasn't tied to any actual estimate of what it would take, and certainly wasn't tied to what it would take to do it Leicester or at the community college.
This is the first I've heard about that
A lot
Leicester.
of running.
I didn't know
It's
anything
right
about
down
that.
the road from it. What I'm thinking, that's designated to be improved here in the next, I don't know how many years Jeff will have to tell us. I really don't have enough information on this thing to make a decision today on it. That's the problem. We got all these questions up in the air. I really can't tell you at this time what's a good thought. I know the town has been wanting this and trying to move with it. We have, we don't know about the sales of things coming through as of yet, and the possibility of moving to Leicester Park, which is in the process. I think they have 20 more acres there to develop yet for parks and for fields. So I don't know.
All right, I think I think it's a common sense decision if we get the answers that we need to get, like what are the ramifications when it comes to state funding and that type of thing. But because it's just one-time money, that this could be, depending on, we're going to have to vote on it now unless you pull your motion, Ed, to get more information before we put it in there. That would be the other alternative, but that's up to you.
No, I think we should keep moving forward. Again, the intent here is to create these assumptions, vote on them, move forward. It allows us to go to the next step. If facts come up where we have to make changes, or if, again, these are placeholders. We're having more conversation on this, unfortunately, than we did on the RSS and some of these nonprofits, some of these other much more challenging concerns. I'm 100%, supportive of Hampstead and doing what I can to make that a viable, community with changing that North Carroll High School into something that they'd be very proud of. I don't think anybody should doubt that. As far as the community wanting it, my understanding was that there was a volunteer organization that was going to be trying to raise money. I don't know if that ever happened. It's been years, so I inherited part of this. But we're at a point where that money we tagged specifically for this field, a bond was put in. It does not look like it's a viable solution because the fields aren't going to be there, or the change over in North Carroll. We're not taking over those fields from the county. So I'm not sure about this other park at all. I don't have any insight on that. I'm just saying, I think we should move forward and go on to the next topic.
Okay, you're going to have to drop that so we can, or collapse that, so we can get where I see everybody. Okay. We've got a motion and second for a placeholder only here, because, we got to make sure we keep saying that, although folks won't pay attention to that, I know. But motion and second to put that into the general fund. So all those in favor? Okay, that's 3. And those against? And the only reason I'm voting against is because I'd like to get more information on what the ramifications are. And that's fine. It passes with a placeholder now, so we'll let it there. But that was my own. I just like to, because I'd like to make sure that there maybe wouldn't be a possibility of being able to move it or something with another, I don't know, another project or something. That's all. And I'm sure the answer is no, but that's the only reason.
Yes, I want more information on this before we vote on it. I mean, we really have to look at all. We only have part of the information. We have assumptions, And once you vote on a placeholder, they're pretty much in place. Very few of them get revisited. So that's why I'm not ready to vote on this time.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of other information for you. Jeff just reminded me that there's not enough parking or infrastructure in place to handle this. And if we wanted to take that on, it would trigger some other traffic, road improvement requirements from the state. So this can't easily be moved to Leicester.
I had messaged Doug at Shoemaker. He's on a conference call with the House delegation, but he's aware of what we're trying to do and he should be able to give us some information.
Okay, well, right now it's a placeholder anyway, so it passed. So right now it is what it is. So if indeed we get other information, again, we can come back and revisit it because it's only a placeholder. Where else are we finding anything? Any more interest in my presentation or my possible way of finding about another 325,000 for the next 6 years with the with that health cost savings? I mean, I'll try to make a motion for a placeholder, but I'm not sure how far it's going to go. So I'll make the motion that we take that 3.5 million and split it up between the next 6 years, however that came out, to put it on the bottom line.
I'll second that.
Okay, I didn't finish yet, Weaver. Out of the out of the whatever that fund was, the health cost fund. And Dick, you second? Okay. Discussion on that.
I'm absolutely against this. We're creating a cliff. We are not creating a roadmap. We're not creating anywhere where we see where we're going to go. You're putting the follow-on board of commissioners, as it's been done in the past, in a very, very difficult decision without knowing. I mean, it's a drop-off. And we're making a commitment that I feel is not the right commitment to make at this time. I'd rather see where I'm going than going into a room with all the lights out and just all of a sudden hitting into a wall. And that's what we're going to be creating. So,
Can we reimburse that?
What's that?
Can we put it in with a way to reimburse that money in X years and give away to next year or the following year as money comes in to back that up?
My thought is if we ever did anything like that, it would be the same thing as saying, let's create a tax situation in 2025. And it'll be, we'll put it in place and the Board of Commissioners, they can change it. But that would be the same type of situation in my view. I don't know, Ted, can you?
Yeah, and even that aside, the problem isn't taking that money. We believe there is money to take. The problem is how we're going to use the money. And to Commissioner Rothstein's point, if we use it for ongoing expenditures, once we've used it, how do you pay the next year?
And Ted, you already have it worked out where that money's going to be decreasing, that's going to go in there. So basically it's coming back to our bottom line anyway. It's just not going to be cut off. It's going to decrease gradually. Is that correct?
Right. And the current plan runs out, I think it was to fiscal year 36.
Right. So
yeah,
it won't be a cliff then because it goes down. But that money will be used for the bottom line, just not all of it within the next 5 years.
Correct.
Steve, I would look at this in a more positive light, not necessarily a positive light, if you were to say, taking that money as a lump sum, as one time, and putting it in a general fund as a one-time $3.5 million. Because then at least I know it's there. If you try to put it into an ongoing situation, that's my biggest concern, is it's just going to stop and then we fall off the cliff. So if that's what you're, looking at as a potential, I'm open to having that conversation. I'm open to having any conversation, but I think it's a little bit more of a mature approach in taking it. So, thoughts?
If we were to add that to the fund balance at this time, or that type thing, could be used for one-time funds, could we, I'm just looking, where would we need it that we could use it for that would offset some of our ongoing expenses?
Well, that's what I've been trying to argue, is it can't offset your ongoing expenditures. And as far as it being available for one-time use someday, we can make the move to get it out of there and put it somewhere else. But as long as it's in that fund, if it doesn't get spent, it doesn't get spent. It's still a reserve for you. So moving it from one place to another can happen at any time.
But it could be used to shore up our budget in future years if it's needed, even if it's there at that point, correct?
Yes, the commissioners could appropriate this in any budget.
So at least that would give us, if that's the intent, is to give the Board of Commissioners, us, another tool to be able to balance it, again, using it one time and just putting it lump sum in there, I can definitely have that conversation. If we try to push it out over time, then that's where I'm having a little challenge, or a lot of challenge.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not sure I understand that mature comment.
No, mature not being you mature. No, mature being mature in the conversation, understanding the impacts of that. No, it was definitely not slid on you. It was just having a more thorough conversation. No, if the word messed you up, I apologize, but it definitely was not. I'd say to Weaver, not to you, but that's different.
That
Do you
makes
want to
me,
modify that?
I can, and that's fine, but then I would maybe this is a question for Ted. Again, I'm trying to find a little extra here in order to help us have that little bit more in case we need it. What would be, maybe there's a happy medium here where we'd only take like 2.5 out of it, or 3, instead of the whole 3.5 that you felt we'd be comfortable with, so as not to affect the way in which it is being, it is not creating a problem in all those out years. You know what I'm saying? In other words, if we take 2.5 out of there now, or 3, I don't want to affect the way in which you have it coming down in the out years. You know where I'm going here? I'm not saying it right, but you understand in my question?
Yeah, I understand. And actually, that long plan we have is not a big concern of mine. We can adjust that. My concern is whether we take 1 million, 2 million, or 3 million. If we use it for ongoing expenditures, we're creating a problem for ourselves. We're exacerbating the problem we already have. And I understand the desire to find some more room. The problem is there just isn't more room. And that brings us back to the idea I brought up before. If you want to add ongoing expenditures, if you want to add those 2 dispatchers, I'd say we just make the choice to do it. We acknowledge we've increased our risk, and we let the plan reflect where we are.
Okay, so how wrong am I looking at this, Ted? If I say we take 3 million out of there and put it in the bottom line, in the event that we see $3 million less in our revenue.
Well, no need to do that. I mean, if that happens, we will deal with it just like we will with fiscal year 20 if we come up short. That money that's the commissioner's money as it stands right now. You don't have to move it anywhere. And we have our unassigned fund balance. What order we use them won't really be important. Yes. So right now, when we look at fiscal year 21, I think we need to acknowledge there's some risk that whatever budget we adopt, that the revenues will come up short. I don't think that's anywhere near as likely as it is in fiscal year 20. It's a possibility. But if in fact we are peaking now, I mean, that would seem to indicate that opening begins maybe even in this fiscal year, and maybe 21 looks more, I'm not going to say more or less normal, but isn't dramatically different than what we expect. But even if it goes a little bit longer, you know, we're not expecting the same kind of impact in 21 that we are in 20. So back to your question though, I don't think there's any need to move that money from one place to another for that purpose. And, you know, and when you say the bottom line, if you mean of the 21 budget, remember in the end, we have to adopt a balanced budget. There can't be more revenue than there is expenditures. So it's not like there could be extra sitting there. Now, I guess in theory, you could appropriate another $3 million to the reserve for contingencies. But again, I'm not sure that there's any real driving need to do that.
Well, it would definitely make us feel better.
Well, we don't need any more reason than that then.
All right, well, if everyone, I don't think it's going to pass anyway. So I'll withdraw my motion.
The parking lot overlays, we have allocated, you know, 280,000 this year, and it goes all the way up to, well, it goes up to 436 and then back down, for a total of 1.9 million. I don't know if there's flexibility in looking at that. You know, they're county facility parking lots. I'm just trying to go through and find where we can pull some dollars.
Okay, this is
Totally.
totally,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ted.
this is totally at the commissioner's discretion. So this is a place where you can make the choice. Now, the change in the funding that you're looking at is because we had for a few years a higher level of highway user revenue that's going to be going away. We did some moving around to push some money to paving that we won't be able to continue doing. Now, the reason we push money to paving is because there's a concern that we're not really keeping up. So that becomes the trade-off in what you're bringing up. You can absolutely say we're going to reduce the funding that's going there. But, you know, if you talk to the people who are responsible for getting this done, nobody is going to tell you, okay, we can do it and it won't matter, because we know it will. We don't feel like we're doing as much as we should now.
Can some of this be from, for parks? Can it come from Project Open Space monies?
Almost all the CIP for parks is program open space money.
For even overlays of parking lots?
Yep, I believe so. We use program open space on parking lots than we did.
Yes, we do on the larger parks.
But But the parking lot overlays that I'm looking at, again, the yellow book, page 149, it does have like Deer Park, Courthouse Annex, Sandy Mountain Park, Farm Museum, all the way down to Accession Church, with 1.9 million total project cost. That's project open space money?
No, that's what Deb
Okay,
said.
right.
The big parks like Piney Run.
So can some of these other parks be pulled into open space money and used?
Anywhere we believe that it is eligible, we're already doing it.
Okay.
In fact, in recent years, there were things that we thought were not eligible for program open space that when we really pushed the state on it, they said, oh, well, maybe you're right. You know, so that's something we are always trying to make sure we're using it for everything we can. But even that's not free money, because we have no feeling that the amount of program open space we get over years is really enough to maintain all the infrastructure we have.
But going back to these parking lot overlays, that is our discretionary funds that we could manipulate, correct?
The choice is yours. Yes.
So I think I'd be looking at the three of you more with the 4-year background that you have prior to Eric and I coming on board. I mean, you have you're going to have better insight on these projects than at least I do. So, any thoughts?
These are one-time monies, right? Right, Ted?
Well, it's one time for any project, but we have so many projects that in practice it's ongoing. We're funding this every year. It just, which lot we do is changing every year.
Yeah, so if we have projects, we could infuse in one-time money into here, slide the rest of it back a little bit to help in the future budgets.
Not sure I followed that.
Well, if we were to infuse one-time money to pave this group of parking lots or some of it, the money we had allocated in the budget out in the out years for this or some of it, we could slide that into 06 or up to 26 or some of those other years, correct?
Well, I don't know that we have any cash in the mix here, but even if we did, it would still be one of those things where you'd be taking one-time money in a roundabout way to fund an ongoing cost.
Yeah, but you're only paving this thing, what, once every 10 years or so, something like that?
But if I'm reading you right, Commissioner Weaver, you're looking at taking like $1.8 million in one-time money, putting it into this paving project for the parking lot overlays, and paving all those parking lots with that 1.8 million from our one-time money. But then you're going to take that 1.8 million, it's still one-time money because now you've taken it out and used a different way, but you're just looking at it over 5 years or whatever. It's 1.8 million of one-time money. You're just looking at it a little bit differently.
I don't think that 1.8
Hey, Eric, can you say that again? You came in broken.
I don't think that 1.8 millions will actually turn into a reality. I think the reality is this flat budgets will come up even short.
Yeah, I think we're starting to go in circles here. Keep looking at everything and nitpicking everything. And we've done this for the last couple of years. In fact, for the last 4 or 5 years, we've done this, and here we are staring at books again, doing the same thing we did before. Bottom line, we don't have enough revenue to cover what we have to do.
Dennis, I was gonna throw you a softball here. Because this is just like the roads. Have you seen some of our parking lots? They're in drastic need of help and will be quickly. So just like you always say, Dennis, with the roads, man, this is a tough one because I noticed out at the college not too long ago when I was out there, one section of that is very soon in dire need of help. And so anyway, there's my softball, Dennis. Here it comes. It's slow pitch. Take it.
I agree. I would hesitate to take money out of that because of what you just said. They're just going to get worse and worse, and it's going to cost us more money in the end to fix them. Thanks for that.
Gravel parking lots?
Wait, what? So, in the interest here of continuing or stopping our staring, what's the stomach here for perhaps saying what we got in front of us is our proposed budget right now?
I have one thing I want to revisit before we go that way, if you don't mind. We were looking at we'll focus on, I guess, the central things the county needs here this year. And, I've been looking at this, and is it essential, is our director of fire and EMS, as an example, is that essential here now or wait till July? And I've talked to a lot of people in the fire departments, all over the place. And many of them, majority I talked to, that had an opinion on it or were giving me an opinion on it, said, yes, please get them on board now so they can help work through some of the issues they're dealing with. And I got a call from some people saying it would be so nice to have one person to talk to that deals with the 14 different fire departments out here. So that's one example. I think of what I foresee as maybe a necessity at this time. Do we delay it to July or do we continue the process now? And I wanted to throw it out there and get your thoughts on that.
So, Dick, I'll jump on this one for a second, and that is a little bit of the inside baseball that Steve and I were participants in the search, not in the search, but in the interview process. We got it down to 3 very strong, viable candidates with the intent of bringing them in front of the 5 of us. As we were going through this, the discussion we were having was the individual, the leader that's going to come in to doing this, we want to really get it right. We want to make sure we have the right individual out of the 3 and not rush through this because of the importance of that role. And the importance of that role, again, the military side, the tactical, operational, and strategic. The initial tactical job that individual will have will be hands-on going to the 14 stations and learning the ins and outs of the community of those 14. So it'll be a lot of direct relation and building from that. Then it'll be the operational to build out over the next year to 3 years, and then the strategic. The challenge is, because of the environment we're in right now, the tactical piece, I think, is not obtainable. And one, for the 5 of us to make the appropriate selection, I think we can do it. It's just not the best environment to do it. But 2, and more importantly, once that selection is made, that individual, because of the environment we're in right now, they're not going to have the opportunity to do the things I believe because the 3 are would be able to do. As far as beyond that, honestly, I got, the emails and phone calls. I don't know the individuals calling me, except saying that they were all very professional or parts of the community in the fire and EMS. And I listened to each one of them, but uh, I, I'm hesitant to jump into something because we're coming up with a plan. And my biggest concern is that we will not afford the gentleman the opportunity to do the tactical things he needs to do when he's on board because of the environment we're in between now and July. So I don't know, Steve, do you have any thoughts?
Before you jump in, I was thinking though, if we continue, I mean, we have to go through the interview yet, which is going to take some time. It's going to be a virtual interview or whatever, just to get them identified at least. I don't want to lose good candidates. You know, I'm trusting you to say, you know, we have 3 good candidates out here. I don't want somebody to get disgruntled and pull out on us. At least identify that person, come up with a time, and the time we get around to this, it'll almost be probably the time we would bring them on at the end of hopefully the pandemic issue. They'll be able to go out and do the one-on-one as such as you were talking about. And that's a very important part of it. But, you know, they have to get up and running somehow here. And this is, you know, promotion under fire here as such. And we know that at this time, but I'm not sure that's always a bad thing. It's still going to take us a little while to get all this put together. And about the time some of these, not sanctions, but some of these restrictions are done, I think they'd be in there, maybe ready to go.
So to that point, Dick, none of the 3 candidates are going anywhere. All 3 have verified that they are still in, and they have they're all 3 professionals, and all 3 of them have identified the fact that what Ed just said. They realize the situation that we're in right now, and they have said as well that they understand that it's tough and they're fine with holding on here. So that's number 1. Number 2, if we're going to bring this person on board, as you say, Dick, next week or whatever, quickly, y'all going to have to give him some money.
Isn't that in the 20 budget? That is in the 20 budget.
His position and an assistant. There is no other money in there.
And do we have to bring the assistant on at one time? Can't that person come on and be part of the assistant later as they get input into it and into?
So you're going to hire the king without anybody to help him.
The assistant will come later because the director will have to go through a process to hire somebody. I don't know how long that will take, but they're not going to happen simultaneously.
And actually, Ted, I apologize because you were part of our group as well. Do you have any, you know, and not to put you directly just on the spot, but any other thoughts about what's been shared so far, about what we've been discussing?
Well, I believe we need to move on with hiring the director as soon as it's practical for us to do it. I mean, we know we have a situation to be dealt with. That's not going away. And the director is the first step. And as far as other money goes, we've talked about this earlier in the process. We shouldn't lose what Commissioner Wance said. This plan that we're talking about right now, for whatever it is, doesn't include anything for advancing the transition. The only thing it gets us is the people to start it.
I agree that we should bring this person on as I guess, as quickly as prudently possible. But there's steps to go through first. We're doing, number 1, we're doing a budget right now. Number 2, we had all agreed to look at the bylaws, I guess the bylaws, one more time and fine tune what we want to do before we hired someone for this position. However that shakes out in time is how it's going to shake out in time. I don't see it happening anytime really soon. I'm not saying we should put it off forever, but being realistic, it's going to be a while.
didn't we decide to let them look at the bylaws and come back to us? We were gonna dictate the bylaws 100%.
We said we were gonna take one more look at his bylaws and fine tune them ourselves before we hired the head of the fire and EMS service.
The commissioner, the volunteers were deeply involved with creating the bylaws. Now the point is they're becoming your bylaws, and you need to make whatever changes seem appropriate to you.
Yeah,
So
I would
maybe-
hesitate.
Yeah,
I
prudence.
would hesitate.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ed.
No.
I would hesitate to use words like dictate. That's not the intent here. The intent was us to now take those and fine tune them, because let's be clear, this individual is going to be our employee. He's going to work for us. So I would be more comfortable here, because listen, even if we hire somebody, how's that individual, what's he supposed to use to move from one place to the other? There's no money in the budget. So if we're going to do this, we've got to at least put some money in there to allow the opportunity for that individual to at least operate. And there's $0 in there. So I had brought this up early in the process. Look, I'm all for getting him on as soon as possible. Let's be clear. I don't appreciate the amount of form letters that we've been getting on this, because they all say pretty much the same thing. We understand the importance. We do. We're very in tune with this issue. When we said the hiring freeze was going to happen, we also, I think, said that we would also identify those after May the 1st that we consider to be essential and make the exception during that time period. So I would think that between May and July, and I would hope by that time, a little of this mess that we're in will be freed up that will allow us to get to there. But the bottom line here is this: we've got to put some money into that department, because you can't hire a person who doesn't have any ability to do anything because there's no money there. So if you're going to take some one-time fund, or if you're going to take, y'all are talking about one-time funding and that type of thing, at least we got to put, I don't know, $10, $15, $20,000 in there just as a starter over the next, and, run that out in order for the individual to have something. I mean, they're going to have transportation too, right? Because they shouldn't be using.
What's wrong with mileage reimbursement?
Reimbursement, what?
Mileage reimbursement for the first year. I mean, use the vehicle reimbursed by the miles they put on.
Okay, that still doesn't give them any money to operate with. Where's the mileage reimbursement coming from? General fund? Going to that department that has no budget?
We take one-time monies and put in to get started with it until we have a better understanding where this is going. Like Dennis said, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to look at the bylaws, go through those. Time we get the interview process set up. We're still talking in the May sometime. Get them on board here June. It'd be a month earlier. If we wait till July, we'll be into September. So I don't know.
So how about if we take a look at the bylaws when we're done with the budget process? And then at that point, we will have the opportunity to reconvene, come up with the schedule for the interview of the individuals, and then make a decision on who we want to hire. Whether that hire occurs, 1 June, 1 July, 1 whatever, we'll figure that out. I think, Dick, your point is, let's keep the momentum going that we started a while back when we done really well. I think we can do that without spending any money. It's just our time. And right now our time is limited because we're working through the budget. So my recommendation, we get through this budget and then come up with a conversation about the bylaws and finalizing the interview process.
In the meantime, I'd like to make the recommendation that we take $50,000 and spread it over the next 6 years for something in that department.
Okay, commissioners, we actually do have $10,000 a year and growing for, office supplies, it's travel, et cetera.
Okay, so that's over and above the 2 salaried positions, Ted?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that settles that. All right, I think that's a good compromise, Ed. I think the hiring freeze got everybody spinning around the ceiling. And I think by saying that we'll make this a priority and get to it when we can, because the hiring freeze was from May to July. And if we say we'll make this one a priority and get to it when we can in the reasonable amount of time doing the things that we have to do, I think that'll settle the ceiling flying. Everybody agree?
I'll put that in the form of a motion. What Ed said.
All right, do we need a motion on that? I guess we do. I don't know if we need a motion. Can't we just say that we'll take that position and that'll be the first one? Or if you want to do a motion, that's fine.
Can we tie it to the turf fields? I'll second the motion.
All right, what was the motion?
What motion are we talking about?
Yeah, but
I didn't hear a motion.
it's your hiring freeze. You can do whatever you want. If you say we're going to take on position X, I mean, that's in your hands.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion. I just think that when it comes to it, we'll all move forward with it in the appropriate time. It's like Ted said, it's in our hands. We'll handle it when it comes up. We need to get through the budget first.
So I think the hiring freeze was, with the exception of those we deemed to be essential. I'm pretty sure that's what was in that motion.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Then this, I would think, would be considered essential. So this does not apply to our hiring freeze, and we'll get to it as soon as possible. All right, what else do we have?
Well, I guess the point is, where else can we go with the discussions? I mean, I feel like we've pulled pretty much every thread we seem to be able to pull that are viable, and some that we don't want to do and we took off the table, which I definitely appreciate. Ted, is there any other thoughts you want to share as far as where other discretionary funds that we should either challenge or have that conversation? I mean, are we missing like a big chunk of something?
No. We've talked about the big places, that big in the sense of what we have available to us. AgPres, economic development infrastructure, the possibility of changing capital projects, the medical costs. I mean, after that, I mean, there's lots of things you can talk about, but there's nothing easy and none of them are going to bring you lots of money. So no, I have nothing to really steer you to.
Did we talk about stormwater management money? Because there's millions of dollars in that every year. I know there's a lot to do, but did we kick that around?
There was a conversation not too long ago. I think you had it with Tom Devilbus. But yeah, that's largely because of our permit requirements. And our concerns are the next permit, which we're waiting on, is going to be more stringent than the one we have. So there's little thinking that we're going to be able to back off of what we're doing. So it's one of those places where you can, in theory, reduce the funding, but there'd be some practical problems, including, we made an agreement with the state to set up this that separate fund instead of doing what everybody liked to call the rain tax back then.
It'd be nice that the General Assembly would revise that legislation.
Good luck with that.
Can you know what in one hand and wish in the other?
So today's the 16th. We have to have our proposed budget out by the end of April. Is that right, Ted?
Yes, and Deb, correct me if I'm wrong. We kind of backed up. When would we need to know what you're going to do in order to be able to do that? And I think we came up with the 23rd. Is that right, Deb?
That's correct.
I say we haven't talked at all about any projects that are coming up. And I know there's not much money, but there's a project that I would like to bring up, put it in CIP, is that Monroe Street roundabout with the sidewalks that are included. And the reason I bring that up is we've talked about for the past couple of years of adding sidewalks around where there are schools. This project would take care of 3 schools in one project, because you have William Winchester, you have West Middle, and you have St. John's, all right there at the top of that little hill. This would become sidewalks going down, sidewalks on each side. There'd be a roundabout there to make it safer. I just think it's something we should look at. And I don't have the figure amount on that. I know it's in the CIP somewhere there already, but it's not in the recommended one, if I'm correct, Ted.
No, it is not. And right now, I believe we only have a years old cost estimate that did not include all the sidewalks you're talking about. I hate to throw a number out, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're not talking about $3 million or more to do that. But we would have to get a number to put on there.
I would like to, if you could get a number. I can't get it today, I know that, but get a number. Let's look at that, because we can talk about sidewalks around schools all we want, but we don't do anything about it. Nothing's ever going to happen. And I know we get grants, but we get grants for 100 feet here and 20 feet here and that kind of stuff, which helps. But this is just a bigger step, and I think that we need to take a bigger step.
Okay, we will talk to Public Works, but when we ask them for a number on this, the reaction is going to be probably more or less, "Are you crazy? How are we supposed to put a number on this today?" But we'll see what we can get in terms of a reasonable estimate of what kind of magnitude we might be talking about.
Tell them, yes, we are crazy.
Thank you.
So we're scheduled currently to come back on the Tuesday, 21st at 10 o'clock. We can have the conversations about projects on Tuesday, then just finalize on Thursday morning. Chewing through this a little bit more over the weekend, I don't know if that's going to help at all, but I think that would be the prudent step. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, we could even do an all-dayer if you wanted, Ed, on that Tuesday. Because we've only got a 10 a.m. schedule, but we could, unless it conflicts with someone's schedule, we could add Thursday afternoon session or a Tuesday afternoon session if you wanted. I don't know.
When you
I mean,
say we're scheduled,
Go ahead, Ted.
when you say we're scheduled, you just mean for a regular business meeting. I don't think we're scheduled for a budget meeting.
I have a tentative open session, budget work session at 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock on my calendar on Tuesday. And I know Vivian is never wrong, so just saying.
Okay.
And then as far as Tuesday, if you're asking, for all of us, I'm open Tuesday. I got nowhere else to go.
And I did just get a quick estimate of $2.7 million without land acquisition.
Sounds very
And-
reasonable.
And, when you think about land acquisition, I don't know how much we would need to acquire. Probably talking about easements, but you're talking about a heavily developed area. So, it's not going to be an inexpensive place to be acquiring land.
I mean, I'm glad we got the estimate, but we can hold off and talk about this on Tuesday. And what I have on my calendar is a hold from 10 to 12. But I'm still good for that. I mean, I wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. So Tuesday, 10 to 12, and in the afternoon's fine as well.
Okay, what about the afternoon if we need to? Because there'll probably be, I don't know if there'll be any other open session items or not. I mean, probably not a lot, but we could certainly make the entire day if you are available Tuesday afternoon as well, to finalize this thing.
I'm good with it.
The budget analysts are all saying, yes, please.
Okay, Roberta, is there anything on the horizon that you think would need to be on our agenda for Tuesday other than budget? And if there is, could it be pushed to Thursday?
No, there's nothing on Tuesday other than budget.
Okay, well, this might give us a chance. I'm sorry, Dennis, go ahead. I see you got your light.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure Tuesday also, if we could have Deb bring up or email to us before then, all the decisions that we've made along the way, all the little placeholders that we have, so we can see it before we get here on Tuesday, all the little things, that we've done along the way that we normally get on so we could have that, it would be great.
I'll send that out.
Eric, are you still on?
Would you say it? I couldn't.
Looking for Commissioner Boucher.
I'm trying to reach him.
Okay, I was gonna say, we'll see if Tuesday's okay with him. To include Tuesday afternoon.
Will do, yeah.
Be a good time to try to pass something he's not really in favor of, but I can't think of what that would be off the top of my head.
While we're waiting on that, anything else for open admin?
The only other thing was we were having that conversation about the coupon and extending the timeline. If we can, with Eric being back on, if we can come up with a motion and move forward with that, I think that's a good news story. And my motion would be to use the 2020 coupons that were given in 2019, fiscal year 20, to allow them not to expire until, again, I'm throwing out 30 September, giving it 90 days. If you want to say end of the calendar year, that's fine. I just want to give people the opportunity to use their coupons. And that's it.
I see Jeff has just joined us. Came up my computer. Do you have anything to say about that, Mr. Castaway?
No, our team was discussing, oh, let me get over to this screen so I'm straight on. So yeah, my team was discussing this and we, extending it, it's, the coupons are the coupons, so they've already been credited. It's some expenses will then carry over to FY21 because now that trash is coming in without a dollar amount affixed to it. So you're just spreading some of the expenses that would be in FY20 to FY21. But we're not opposed if we give a 90 or a 3 or 6 month extension to that, just so people can have a chance to use them. We're still,
Hey, Ed, I'll second that if you say October the 1st.
October the 1st.
Yeah, I'll second
Your
that.
motion.
I'll second that because then that gives an additional August, September. Let's see, July, August, September. I think 3 months is reasonable. So I would second that. I'll second it.
May I actually suggest October 3rd, which is a Saturday, and then it ends
Actually, I
up-
was thinking October 3rd would be much better. So the motion is that we extend the expiration to October 3rd of 2020 for those coupons.
I was really in love with the 1st, but I'll go with the 3rd. I'll second the amended motion.
Can we tie it to a turf field?
We go to the 10th to get another Saturday in there.
At the landfill. We'll put the turf field to landfill.
All right. Got a motion and second to extend the coupons until October the 3rd. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Eric has frozen again. Eric. There he goes. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Just a reminder. Yeah, I know you're struggling down there. I feel your pain. Just a reminder to everybody, when we make the motion here to adjourn, we need to go into closed admin for land acquisition. So everybody stay put and don't disconnect. Or in your case, Eric, try to stay connected. How's that? So, all right. Any other thoughts on this? Roberta, I'm sorry, you're lit up again.
Yep. Was everyone okay with Tuesday, both morning and afternoon? We'd start at 10 and go to noon and then start at 1 unless something happens and go on the rest of the day. Okay. Commissioner Boucher, you're okay with that?
Eric, can you give a quick thumbs up on all day Tuesdays? Okay with you?
Okay, great. This technology is tough today. All right.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the budget? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go to closed for land acquisition. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Wow. It's much easier for me to just do it and be done with it. So, okay. Motion and second to go to close for land acquisition. All those in favor? All right. Then after that, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it. Okay. All those in favor? And I'm sure Eric is good with that. I can't imagine he didn't want to adjourn after land acquisition. Okay, everybody stay put. That's on our staff here for closed. Matt, the folks in IT and our AV department, thank you again very much for your cooperation today. Guys are doing a great job. And we'll see everybody on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And we are now officially off the air, but still on into closed. Thank you.